What's up, everybody? It's your boy Jay back here again with another video on Real Sports Talk. And today I want to talk about the NFL All-Decade Team. So the NFL has recently came out with an All-Decade Team for the 2010s. The first decade I was able to watch football because of my age and everything. And I kind of fell in love with the game, and I really appreciated being able to watch all the great players, the Calvin Johnsons, the Julio Jones, the Tom Brady, Drew Brees, all those guys. But I do want to say that I don't totally agree with the list, and I feel like there were some big snubs, and I want to talk about some of the snubs I feel like people that were left off the list that I believe deserve to make it. Okay. So the first player I want to talk about is Arian Foster. And the player I feel like he should have been on the list over is Frank Gore. Now, I respect Frank Gore, and I understand his legacy in the NFL. He'll be in the NFL such a long time. He's like the Vince Carter of the NFL, being there, being productive, having multiple 1,000-yard seasons, having multiple Pro Bowl seasons, and I understand that. But if you just look at the decade of the 2010s, you look at a guy like Arian Foster, who was one of the best running backs in the 2010s, in my opinion. He was one of the best running backs in the league at points in the 2010s with the Houston Texans. Well, the last great running back that they had, and his rushing attack elevated the team farther than what they were. So I want to get more into it and explain more why. I'll bring up the stats. Now, granted, because of the fact that Arian Foster didn't play out his entire career in the 2010s, had a shorter career, Frank Gore did have more carries and had more yards. But even though with the less amount of game plays and whatnot, Arian Foster was still able to have 4 more touchdowns at 51 in his short time in the league, and still amassed 6,270 yards in the 2010s with only 1,422 carries compared to Gore's 2,380. Now, also what I mean in saying is this. Yes, the yard total will make you believe, okay, Gore belongs in there over Foster. However, you got to look at it from the standpoint of this. Who dominated in the 2010s? I like to look at that. Who was the man in the 2010s when it came to that position? Not just who was consistent over that decade, but who dominated. And I feel like Arian Foster is one of those running backs that dominated. As I previously said, Frank Gore was not a top guy. But with Foster, he was considered a top guy with the Chris Johnsons of the world, with the APs of the world at the running back position, with the LaShawn McCoys of the world at the running back position of guys that were top flight. If you look at his total amount of yards, his highs in yards and his highs in touchdowns, it surpasses and dominates Frank Gore's. Yes, Frank Gore is more consistent and has more yards because he played more years than Foster has, but he did not play as good as Foster did in those key years. As an example, Foster was a All-Pro at one point, and he was a multi-time Pro Bowler, and he had more Pro Bowl appearances than Gore, and had an All-Pro where Gore did not have any. So I just want to say that I feel like Arian Foster, who in my opinion and many is considered a top back in that decade, got overlooked because he wasn't consistent and he didn't play out his whole career in that 2010 span. However, he did dominate in his time throughout the 2010s, and I feel like that's why he deserves to be on this list. With the next guy I want to bring on this list, I want to talk about the tight end position. I found it interesting. So a name that I saw was Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce is one of the best tight ends in the NFL today. He put up great numbers. He was a five-time Pro Bowler and a multi-time All-Pro. Just because of his ability to catch the ball, he's more of a receiving tight end than a total tight end or a red zone tight end. And he has been able to dominate in his short span of the 2010s. Don't get me wrong. But if I just go off and I look at production and stuff like that, you have to look at a guy like Jimmy Graham. Now, when I look at a guy like Jimmy Graham, although I do respect Jimmy Graham, I am a fan of Jimmy Graham. I have to be real when I come to the touchdowns and the differences in yards and whatnot. Now, don't get me wrong. Does Graham lose to a guy like Kelce when it comes to yards? Of course. That's true. Graham was never really that type of tight end in terms of rack and yards like that. He was more of an end zone tight end. But boy, when he got in the end zone, he dogged out. I mean, he killed him when it came to touchdowns. It was almost a 30 freaking touchdown difference between the two guys. Like, literally. Graham had 74 throughout the 2010s to where Kelce only had 37. And he had more yards than Kelce. and he had more receptions than Kelsey. Now, don't get me wrong, he did play in more games than Kelsey, but at the same time, he was still a 5-time Pro Bowler in his time, which he dominated well. So when it comes to a guy like Graham, I bring up the statement of this. Graham, yes, he wasn't as dominant in that category as Kelsey was in terms of the receiving tight end. But if you look at the total body of work, he was a better tight end, and he was more consistent at his position for that time. It's not like Gore where the numbers are crazy of a difference in highs between the two, and it's not like Jimmy Graham didn't dominate as well as Kelsey did, because that's not true. Jimmy Graham was a top tight end. He put up top tight end numbers. That's why he was a multi-time All-Pro, and he elevated a Saints team, and for a little while elevated a Seahawks team, and with his yards total and his touchdowns. So I just feel like his impact and him being as dominant as he was from 2020 to 2019, I feel like that should put him on this list over Kelsey. Now, it is debatable because Kelsey did dominate as well for his team and had elevated his team up to a different level. I just feel like Graham has done it for a more consistent rate, and it ain't like Travis Kelsey exceeds Graham's level of production like previously stated with a guy like Foster and a guy like Gore. So I feel like Graham deserves to be on this list and Kelsey does not. And that's just my opinion. It's very debatable, and I wouldn't be mad if anybody goes Kelsey over Graham. Now, the last and final guy I want to talk about. And yes, this is going to have a little bias in it considering the fact that I'm a Cowboys fan, but I try to keep it with the numbers. I want to talk about DeMarcus Ware and Calais Campbell. Now, I was looking at this list and my first thoughts were, where's DeMarcus Ware? DeMarcus Ware deserves to be on this list, but he was not. I saw guys like Julius Peppers, who was an older type of player, but he still did his thing in the league. I looked at other guys, but when I looked at Calais Campbell and I looked up the numbers, I have to be real. DeMarcus Ware deserves to be on the list. You look at a guy like DeMarcus Ware when it comes to Calais Campbell. Now, once again, DeMarcus Ware did not play out his entire career in the 2010s like Campbell did. However, it goes back to the Arian Foster and the Frank Gore debate. He was more impactful and dominant. You look at how he started the 2010s. His first year in the 2010s, he had 15.5 sacks. The next year after that, he has 19.5 sacks. Campbell in the entire 2010 has not been able to get to that point not once in his career. Now, he did get to 14.5, but he was never at that 15 mark not once in his career. And Ware did it twice. On top of that, Ware had 4 seasons of double-digit sacks to where Campbell did not. He only had 2. On top of that, Ware was a 5-time Pro Bowler and a 1-time All-Pro, similar to Campbell. However, I just want to say who dominated, who production exceeded the other in the 2010s. Now, yes, Ware wasn't at his best towards the end of the 2010s. He didn't play his whole career, but he did dominate, especially early in the 2010s. And he put up numbers, double-digit sacks, 15-plus sacks, in years. And he did things that Campbell has not done in this league in the 2010s. And I get it. He was an older player and he fell off a little bit towards the end. But if you just look at the production that he put up, and you put up the high amount of production he put up, and how he outdid a guy like Campbell, he deserves to be on this list in front of Campbell. I like Campbell a lot, and I feel like he's a really great guy, but I just don't feel like with the production that Ware put on this list, he was as good. And I also feel like Ware was more of an impactful player on his defense than Campbell was on his. For example, if you look around the defense that the Cowboys had, their defense was not really that great. But with a guy like Ware, he kind of kept them afloat. To whereas Campbell did play on a great Jacksonville defense and the Carolina defense that he played on previous to the fact was a good defense as well. And it was not terrible. It wasn't the greatest, but it was not terrible compared to what the defenses that Ware had to play on. And that's all I'm saying. And I just go off impact and production. I feel like Ware deserves to be on this list over Campbell. Now, I know it's games like Drew Brees. I didn't really get into that in this video. But you guys let me know if I'm right. You guys let me know if I'm wrong. You guys can hash it out. Let me know if y'all feel like it was any other snubs that could have been on this list that I didn't get to. And I definitely hit up with you guys on feedback. And I'll probably come out with another video hopping on those topics as well. That's all I got to say about it. Leave a like or subscribe if you like the video. That's all I got to say about it. Peace.